Well, I guess I'll call to order the meeting of the Water and Sewer Committee for September 8th, 2015.
Is this the meeting? Yeah, it is.
Diane has asked me to go ahead and share because she will be unable to attend today. She wanted to make everybody aware that the interim committee report was provided to the mayor and council for introduction tomorrow evening. And with that, we'll move on to committee reports. Gail?
Okay. I've had second thoughts on the rain barrels. And anybody can talk to me about that. One of my thoughts is how many people will really use them for gathering water, and if not, then is it worthwhile? I mean, the only thing we can do is, I think, contact I guess the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, and just broadcast to the citizens if they would like a rain barrel, we can get them. We need to know by a certain date. Otherwise, we're not going to provide them to everybody. That's the way I would look at it. Does anybody have any questions?
Did you have cost number? Did you get to that stage of it where we actually found out what providing a barrel would cost?
Was it on that list that I emailed? I don't remember.
Whether I saw that or not this morning.
I don't remember off the top of my head if it was. It was last week, right? You sent it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't print it out.
No,
Rain barrels weren't on there?
I don't think so. Toilet, the water heater, shower, the stuff, information you got from Liz.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I
What
just
is
sent,
the cost?
huh?
What is the cost?
The cost of a rain barrel, I know, is, if you're gonna pay, the going rate would be over $100 for some of them. And unless we can get a grant to purchase them, or unless, I think it would be Chesapeake Bay Foundation, some office in there, if they would provide them, then, I think when I talked to, I can't remember who I talked to. Whoever I talked to, it's a matching thing. The city would pay part, and the citizen would pay.
Well, I certainly wouldn't offer them to everyone.
No.
But I would give everyone the opportunity, if they wanted to
Yeah,
purchase, or at least pay part of it.
yeah, we would have to find out how much the cost actually would be, the hard costs, we'd have to nail that down. Then find out how much would be granted to us. Okay, that would be,
What's the cost to install them?
there's no cost to install, like, you set it under your guttering, and it just, the rainwater collects in that.
My guttering is down on the ground.
Well, I mean, there's a way,
We'd have to have my downspouts cut off.
well, either that or you could have a diversion. They could divert that water into a rain barrel.
But if it's down on the ground, it doesn't flow up.
No,
So it's gotta be cut off so it can drop into the rain
Right.
barrel.
right.
Well,
There
that's,
are ways to do that. That's relatively simple.
I know from my own experience in doing construction and home improvement years ago that normally there's about a 2 or 3 foot section of pipe that's screwed
Right.
in. So you would actually have to cut it off. If you simply unscrewed it, you'd be able to achieve an end height that's higher up than it would be on the
Right.
ground.
Right. And normally, they're a PVC type of material, and they look like half barrels or full barrels or something. Or you can get them, my son uses one of these great big blue feed barrels, or whatever, the chemical barrels.
Mm.
But I mean, you can get them in green, you can get them in brown, whatever, but
The county gave them out a couple,
Yeah.
3 years
Mhm.
ago, and if you went in a certain Saturday, and picked them
Yeah.
up. And, our neighbor went, so he picked up one for us, and when it got to it, Lowell said it was too much trouble for him, and what was he gonna use it for, really? Because we'd have to set it up kind of behind the house, But the reason Chuck got it was because of that garden, flower garden, we've got that little plot between us and what's the street behind us anyway, doesn't make any difference out there in Carroll Vista.
Right.
And Lowell said it wasn't worth it really, because you had to have it, like you say, cut off instant there, and, I just kind of watched them, I didn't go out and hear the whole spiel, but anyway. It was more trouble for us, because the only thing we were worried about was the front yard, really, or the other thing for us would be have separate piping come in, and if we wanted to put in a sprinkler system, but that's expensive too, when you look at it, or we thought it was expensive. Unless you had several people on the street and all that wanted to put in the extra piping and so.
And that was kind of my second thought on the rain barrel.
But I know in Florida, we had a sprinkler system and we hardly ever used it.
Well, also, if you live where it freezes, the ground freezes.
Yes.
You gotta either drain your system, you can't leave, it just sit there all
Right.
winter or
Yeah.
it'll freeze.
Yeah, no, but I think normally they have spigots at the bottom where you can attach a hose or something.
Yeah.
So that would be easy, but again, my second thought is that something that we want to, I guess maybe we could feel the citizens out, the town, Carl? What do you think?
I don't see a great need for it myself. I know where you guys are coming from there. You're right, you're looking at a big puff of wind for very little purpose. And I don't see, again, you spend a lot of time talking about this, what's that got to do with water and sewer rates?
Well, I guess it's conservation for people who would be wanting to use that water to water their lawns or anything outside.
Yeah.
They could use a rain barrel. But again, I'm thinking that's probably just, maybe we should just let that.
Not a bad
go for the
idea,
time.
but I just don't see it being,
My thought on it would be even that, I agree, I don't think it's not
Yeah.
a bad idea, but I'm not sure it's something we should specifically
Right.
pursue, maybe beyond providing information to the public saying that
Right.
this is
yeah,
an option.
that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's the same thought about using the water that goes down the Piney Creek for other purposes like watering the
that's
yard. So you wouldn't have to draw out of the
yeah,
system.
my feeling is that should be tabled or put on hold. Okay, now, as to CDBG, Taneytown's eligible. So I think there's no need to get a survey of income or anything like that. The next thing to do is to see if you could get a Cdbg grant, which would pay for some of the improvements that the town has to put on, to, which would, now if we got a CDBG grant and it covered that,
Covered, what's that? You lost me.
what am I talking about? The improvements that the town
The
has to
enhanced
make,
nutrient removal
Yeah.
upgrade for the wastewater treatment.
the upgrade for the water treatment plant. Let's say that we could actually get a grant that would be retroactive, that would help to pay for those improvements. That would lower the cost of the water sewer rate. So I think that that's something that should be pursued aggressively.
Well, if we just put a new plant in, why do we need to improve it?
Because the state has mandated that we need to increase nutrient removal.
Since the time the plant was put in,
That's one of the great things that increased our costs so much on the wastewater treatment
Yeah.
plant is those new requirements that have come.
And I'm sure
And
that
if you notice,
it'll
Ms. Wilson said
continue.
retroactive, potentially a grant could be written in such a way that would help alleviate some of those costs. It's the most excellent news that the CDBG numbers come out. And you've done great work on that, Ms. Wilson, to see that.
Well,
we're
I
improving.
had help,
Not all communities can apply for that, and
right.
so you've
Well,
found
Tony-
out that we certainly can.
Taneytown has applied in the past for CDBG grants and has received them. And, where is that? What are we called here? CDBG eligible non-entitlement jurisdictions, and we fall under that. I'm not sure what non-entitlement means. So I'll have to get some clarifications on that. And then I got the HUD income limits. This is for 2014, but I guess 2015 hasn't come in yet. And then I got a copy of the application and everything, so, and I have to, Nancy was helpful. You know, I have to give credit where credit is due. But I think that we definitely have to get community support involvement, and I'm sure that we would be able to get plenty of community support for
That's
that.
great. Good work.
So,
What kind of, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, where would that come from and what is, I don't,
a community development block grant comes from the Department of Housing and Community Development. They used to be in Crownsville, but now they're in Lansdowne.
and this is
And-
something that comes from the state, the money?
Yes, it comes from the state, yeah. And it also, I think it's housing and community development, but I think, isn't it also under the federal government?
Sure, community development block grants are
Right.
allocated as block grants from the federal government.
Right,
There's two types of major federal grants, categorical grants and block grants. And
Okay.
block grants are given to low-income communities. So you're right on that.
And Gail, you said that you would need community support for this. Do you know what that would entail, like what that would require?
well, I'm sure we would probably need letters like, well, since the town is doing it, we would probably need letters from citizens, from the churches. I think probably we would, maybe the town council, I don't know. Maybe from community businesses.
That's part of the grant application process.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
And what would this money go towards?
It would go to, if we're fortunate enough to get it, it would go to helping to pay down the debt which the town is going to incur or has incurred for this new improved water sewer system that we have to do.
Can this be done yearly, or is this a one-time thing? Like maybe they did this when they first installed it?
No, they didn't.
They did not.
They didn't, and that's why I'm saying, maybe it can, maybe, excuse me, maybe it can be done retroactively.
Right.
Maybe it can be done for the next part of the billing procedure, I don't know. But that's something that we need to find out. And if we can't, if we can't use it to pay for the installation of this system, perhaps there's a way to, perhaps there's some kind of wiggle room. Do you understand what I'm saying?
That's the way grant money often comes.
Yeah.
Certain things are in the scope of the grant,
Right,
but they're not delineated like categorical grants are, because this is a block grant.
right.
That's
So-
something we're pursuing.
Yes, absolutely. I think that is.
Is that something you'd be willing to have for us next time, or to look into it for us next time?
I can do that if I can get the information prior to the next meeting. I'll email it to you, but I'm leaving on Thursday and won't be back until the meeting for the 22nd.
Gotcha.
But I'll try to get some information between now and Thursday when we leave.
Okay. And if you can, then you maybe just letting us know in what direction we should look for the
Right.
information would be helpful,
Right.
just setting us down the right path.
I also will be absent for some meetings in September, Vice Chairman Bigliotti.
The next thing with the Department of Housing and Community Development is that under that, they have this program called the IPP, which is an indoor plumbing program. And I believe that an entity has to handle the entire process, but it would behoove each citizen to say, okay, yeah, I could use a new toilet, new water heater, et cetera, et cetera. We apply for them. We probably do the packaging and everything and submit it to DHCD. I would assume that's the way that goes, because it says, I think, that the entity must handle this. Additionally, you know that DHCD, this has nothing to do with us, but you can get grants for storm windows, energy efficient windows, lead abatement, et cetera, through them. And
Well, let's not go into that. Let's stay with either inside plumbing or
well,
not.
that's all I can tell you about inside plumbing, is that it's administered through the DHCD. And I think it would be an individual application per person, but that we would handle it.
I'm kind of wondering if inside plumbing, how that's gonna affect these buildings with lots of apartments in them. Does the
It's-
apartment owner, now I know that's
The
messed
landlord
up with
has to
HUDs,
apply.
many of them, as I hear.
The landlord has to apply,
Okay,
and he can.
he can. But will he? That's another question. You think so?
I imagine Ollie would.
Oh, yeah.
Is there anything else, Gail?
No, I think that's about everything.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your hard work. Don?
Yeah, I just wanted to.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm skip Barbara, I'm so
Did
sorry.
you skip Barbara? Yes, it says update.
I'm so sorry.
Well, I moved the date with my appointment with Bobby Joe to toward the end of the month. And until then, I'm kind of on hold. And I'm ready for when we decide to move on to mid-range.
All right, well, thank you very much, Barbara.
Do you have the date for that meeting?
Yes, I think it's the 28th.
28th of September. The audit was done on the 1st of September, according to an email that I got. So
I
the
was
4th
told it
wasn't.
would take the whole month.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Don?
Yeah, the main topic here, if you read the agenda, is questions answered by the city manager. I initially was to set up a meeting with Bobby Joe to get some questions answered. So some of the answers have come from Bobby Joe, who is helped me with the title, town treasurer, I would say. Okay, and so most of them have come from the city manager. Some of the things that have come to fore, and they've not answered all the questions. It's been some degree of difficulty for them gathering together all the answers, and they've come one at a time by email. one of the things that did come forth is that there are reserves in the town, and I don't know the number perfectly, but I think it's $8.1 million, which is enough to pay off the current debts that we were talking about already in the bank. Now, I don't know where those reserves are held, but it certainly raises some eyebrows to know that we have large amounts of funds that could result in
Did
paying
they-
off some of these costs that are driving high water rates.
Did they tell you why we have those reserves?
Well, it's recommended by the National Association of Counties for county governments, because I went to that convention in St. Louis, to have a certain amount of reserves for, in order to keep your bond rating good. But there's some ideas that come out of the idea to know that we have that large amount of money set aside. For example, we could self-finance using that leverage some of
That's-
the costs of doing some things we need to increase revenues or lower costs. So that was great to know that, and really quite a revelation. I didn't realize that was so substantial.
Another question about that. Would it be advisable for us to self-finance, really?
I mean, all good portfolio managers use the leverage they have in their equity in order to do things to extend debt or lower costs. And so we do have the leverage in this town to do that, other than sticking with the Davenport reports that raise rates through 2017. So that should come up for discussion. Exactly how you do that, we might leave to a financial expert. But I do know that in reviewing again the Davenport reports, that they were very clear in the original report that we should not stick with an existing plan to the end of the term of their report, saying that they were estimates only. Things like numbers of shutoff and late fees and things we've been discussing are germane to fixing the estimates made by that company. So I was really encouraged to see that. I was also encouraged to see information that all the batteries will be replaced. This committee meeting every month has had the effect of getting the town to do a really good job in going out and finding everybody who might have a battery issue. And we were given assurances through email that all the batteries that they've identified will be replaced by the end of the month. So I'm really excited about that. I know that we had that problem at the Agora headquarters, 211 East Baldwin Street, and got that fixed before this issue ever came up. And that resulted in questions like Bob Flickinger had. Why are you estimating my bill for 12 consecutive quarters? Why doesn't anybody come and read the meter? Because the reader goes by and reads from outside the foundation, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So those are some things that have come up that changes our view and helps us to see that the town is responding to concerns that have been raised through these meetings. So it's been good. We focused the attention of the town on some things that ought to be known and worked out through that. The answers come individually on different days. So I've compiled them, but it's not a complete list. Question 5, for example, was answered sometime early this morning, apparently. So I don't... They took the questions that I read to this committee and put numbers on them so they could begin to crunch them and work on them. And they are doing that. So that's really good. We're going to get to have, when I'm done with all that, or they're done, I should say, we'll have it all listed on some of those questions that were so germane.
And, that would be great. I think
We can get those to you. We can look over those answers, because where there's a will, there's a way. And I do believe that the new initiative to go forward and try to fix this problem that the town has is going to yield some new ideas. So don't have that compiled. Only part of it is compiled for this meeting today.
Anything else, Don?
I just wanted to go back to the idea that you brought up originally, that selling the water that's going down the creek is good water, and it could be used. It could be used for watering yards and that sort of thing. It's good enough for the creek.
Yeah.
It's good enough for some of the things that you might use the spigot to do otherwise, lowering your bill if you could get that water and
I'm-
take
I'm
it
glad
to your
you-
location. It's your original idea, came out of council meeting over 2 months ago.
It was selling
And when you
wastewater.
saw gray water, they think, oh, that's sewage water. But really, if it's clean enough for the creek,
No,
it's
actually,
clean enough for
it's
use
not.
for some things. It might be some questions some people would raise, but there's also some other facilities that use.
No, some
This-
people do use gray water.
Yeah,
It's,
we
well,
call-
it's interesting you brought that up, and there's something I think we need to determine here, or at least delineate. I looked up because we've been using the terms gray water and wastewater interchangeably, but they're actually different
They
things.
are different.
Gray water is water that comes out of sinks, out of dishwashers, water that's used for floors. It's water that is wastewater without fecal or urine in it, fecal contamination or urine in it. And then wastewater is essentially raw sewage with human waste in it as well. So I think we should be careful about using those terms interchangeably because they are two different
And we
things.
have been sloppy about that
Yeah.
on this and at the council level.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be good, because you have to ask the question again. If it's safe enough for the creek, is it safe enough to use for some uses, either in companies or by residents for certain things?
Yeah, you had mentioned that we could sell it to certain manufacturers.
One of them, for example, I don't know if you got my email this
The ice
morning. Dryer's Ice Cream.
Yes.
Subsidiary of Nestle, I think. But yeah,
They get it.
Actually buying specifically wastewater. I
Where
don't
are they
know.
buying it from? How much is it?
I know they were purchasing it from Howard County, or no, the NSA was purchasing their wastewater from Howard County. And the same article that I had read back in January 2014, so the Dryer's Ice Cream was another one of the companies interested in purchasing wastewater. But I have not, I'll have to look that up and see if they actually have gone through with purchasing it from anybody, and if not, if they're still interested.
I have started to look into this, and it can be very expensive. Do we want to suggest more expense to the city?
What's
I don't
expensive?
think so.
Selling
That's what
something
we're trying
that's
to
going down the
avoid.
creek that we don't sell now is expensive.
But how much is it? Is it only gonna be 2 cents a gallon or something? That's not
No,
gonna bring in that much.
We're not buying it, we're not gonna be buying the.
No, but you have to install, I mean, it's different plumbing to be able to use this gray water and separate it from the wastewater. So there's all that expense too. So is it worth it?
Well, some people have said to Henry apparently that you can buy water from the hydrant that's already under pressure and pump it up into your truck.
The
So,
county doesn't sell gray water.
no, I'm
Yeah,
just
I
switching
found
the
that
subject
out.
back to the good clean water that comes from our wells.
But I mean, we have to look at all the,
That's a good point.
you know, how, if you're gonna install this, what is it gonna cost to install this? And what are the, I mean, there's materials and so forth you have to pay for, which isn't cheap. And we don't wanna add extra money if you're trying to help people in that way. But I will look into it more because I'm interested in it because if it's worth it, fine, but
Sure.
will it pay for itself?
But
Would you wanna-
maybe you're using the wrong word. Don is only talking about water that we put into the river. Now, you're saying that's not gray water.
Well, Councilman Bigliotti wisely brought up that we've been using terms rather loosely.
Right, so what's the term we need to use?
Gray water.
Gray water and wastewater, and this is gray water. Wastewater, we don't want anything to do
Okay.
with, that's down the road here.
But that's what's going in the river and going to Frederick.
Well, that's not gray water, then that's got,
It's the discharge from our wastewater treatment plant that's safe enough for the creek, yeah.
Yeah. So surely it would be good enough for golf courses that use a large amount of
Yeah.
water.
There are customers, and Councilman Bigliotti was right to bring this up. If we're not doing anything in that area, we ought to really see, like you said, Ms. Jones, that we compare the cost of getting that piece of piping put in so you could actually gather it up and transport it compared to how much money it would raise.
Yes.
So there is the rub right there.
And
How long would it take?
Talking about wastewater.
Yeah,
no,
this untreated wastewater is dangerous stuff, so that we're not talking about that at all.
Okay.
Now, Jackie, you brought up an interesting point about if there would be some kind of cost to coordinate the system to be able to actually dispense the water to sell it, right? I know in the past Henry has said that the current structure of the wastewater treatment plant as it currently exists before the upgrade, we don't have that possibility. But he said once the upgrade is completed, we will have that possibility. So maybe you want to send him an email and find out,
Let's get going.
you know, what that entails, or if it's something additional we'll have to construct, or if it's included with the current upgrade.
Okay, I'll say the rest of what I have to say.
And the other thing is, if that would be something we could definitely look into a grant for.
And then as for my, Don, is that?
I don't want to, just take a couple questions. I'm working on getting them all together. They come piecemeal,
Yeah.
but it is great data, and it's going to be good and informative to the citizens of Taneytown when we get it all put together. It's been a good process to go through.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm sorry.
I don't know what all you have left there and so forth. I'd like to hear it, because rather than extend this out and just discuss, you know, which is good, and some of it's a little bit, it isn't. But, in my opinion, what we have to stop and think, when that budget was written up in 10 and 11, well, the budget is not our discussion, but it kind of overlaps into it. But in the budget in 10-11 knew that they were going to have to put in some new piping, which they did, but it only took care of the main street. Easter Sunday, I'm going to repeat it again, there were 6 or 7 breakdowns on the back streets because there's piping back there that was possibly put in when they first decided there was such a thing as utilities. I don't know, you've been on there, so that budget, what it did was, okay, they estimated, and I'm sure we could get that work if we had to, but I wouldn't want to have to go in and read fishes and so forth about it, but then they estimated how much it needs to raise to pay for all that and to pay the bonds off. We got a bill here, we're in debt, we don't want to go further in debt. We got to realize that was extended for good reasons, and I'm sure mainly to pay off the bills. I don't think in years past that they raised water rates or such as that, because they just didn't do it. You know, a lot of people probably were still using wells and what have you, and finally bought into when they decided to hook up the city water and so forth. Now, as new developments come in here, like Meadowbrook come in and you know, Cara Vista come in, and we got the finishing of Meadowbrook, which is, I think, 259 houses or something like that. Do you either one remember what the man said? It's such a
52.
Anyway, that's quite a bit coming in, and then there's this development, or did I misunderstand, that may be started in
Meads Crossing.
Meads Crossing will be started in 16 and be coming online. That all has to be paid for to a certain extent. I mean, it's, yeah, the people and the developer will pay so much, but the people that are buying those houses for their monthly and so forth, that's already been put in there, we're going to have to help pay for that. We have to help pay for what hasn't been charged in prior years for upkeep and et cetera and so forth. You get what I'm saying?
I do. I heard every word you said.
Thank you. But I just don't think a lot of people are thinking about that.
But Councilman Bigliotta's clever idea from earlier on in the season was that if we are not getting any revenue for some of this valuable commodity that's going down the creek, we could do that, and we could actually self-finance it if the rates worked out. There's a little more work to be done before we bring that up as a proposal, but it's a clever one, and good work, Joe, on that.
Thank you, Don.
Yeah, and if it works out, fine. I'll be the first one to say, let's go with it, you know. But I also know that there's expenses to it, and is it worth it?
It's
You
all a
know,
question
I
mark
mean,
until
we're
we
not
get
Howard County. We don't have all that sewer water and so forth. You know, so we're getting there with
This-
all the building that's going on.
Does anybody know why, in the first place, the town didn't apply for a grant to do the water sewer?
I do know that a number of grants were looked into, and then this was before my time, so maybe Carl, you could speak to that.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's been a number of grants looked at and pursued, actually, but not gotten.
what?
Henry can tell you, well, Henry can tell you, and Nancy could too. The specifics of those, it's been long enough that I forget. But, and Jackie, you got a good point here about future capital projects, because we have to look at that very closely.
I mean, I've worked in the government with money, big money when you consider this. This is peanuts.
It's small.
And I just know that we planned out, and I know this county has stated, the last two set of county commissioners, we did not plan out, so the last set said, hey, we're gonna start planning out, 5, 6 years ahead, so that we know what we can spend and what we can't spend and so forth. And so that's what the government does. I mean, people call on, I don't want to get into that because that's my ballywagon and soapbox, but people just don't understand a lot of that. I didn't understand until I had got my hands into it and mind into it and around it. And I may ask some dumb questions and redundant questions sometimes because I want to get around it before I make a decision.
So it's good to ask questions and it's good to be objective.
Well,
Yeah,
But I don't see how it can be that expensive if the water's coming out of pipe already ready for the creek.
but
to
there's
get
a
it up
pipe
into-
there.
To a vehicle.
If the pipe's not there, we have to put it there.
I bought a little pump for my basement leaking. It pumps out a pretty good volume of water, just plugged into 110 current. I can fill a 55-gallon drum in several minutes. With that pump, it's set for sale at Lowe's. So it's not impossible to allow people to purchase this, and the expense would not be very high.
Well, it's something worth looking to.
It is. And how much would you need to water a garden or a yard or wash it? Maybe pressure wash the house or something.
Well, with that, if there's nothing else, I'll move on.
No, I have just a couple new questions came this morning, and we did the big revelation is that we do have the river reserves, a substantial amount of reserves that are almost comparable to our current debt.
Well, thank you, Don.
Is that 8 point
I don't want
something?
to be quoted on the exact number because it's a round number. I gave you a rounded number. but I don't have my paper
Okay.
in front of me.
But it's in the
I-
millions.
It is a large number.
Okay. What is the fund available if a hurricane came through here or something and the town had to repair things that had to be done? Electricity, water, and so forth. That money, that general fund is probably put there for that or to fix the pipes on the back street.
Yeah, well, those are rhetorical questions and could be addressed.
Donna, I think you need to be very careful about that 8.1 that you're quoting.
Do you agree with me that the number's that's a pretty good estimate of it?
Not even close.
You don't agree that that's a good estimate of it?
No. You need to go back to Henry and get that clarified. We have nowhere as close to that kind of slush fund.
I thought it was 1.8.
That could be,
Now, something to consider about that, in order to maintain the credit rating we have, we are required to have a certain amount of reserve.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier in the meeting today.
That's not what you're
That's
mentioning
one
now.
of the things that are recommended for governments.
Yeah, before you throw that figure
Maintaining.
around to anyone other than this group, clarify it.
Okay, got my work cut out for me. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Don.
Okay.
In terms of the long-range actions report that we're putting together, I'm starting to put together the basic structure of it. Now, I remember at our last meeting, we'd all pretty much as a group decided that we would not pursue microgrids as one of the recommended actions for the report because we figured they were too far outside the parameters of this committee. If everybody still feels that way, I'll make sure to strike that from the long-term action report.
Well, I don't see why if that new facility is out either on or near a farm, that there couldn't be enough solar panels installed to run that operation.
I agree with Barbara.
Yeah, I
This is a
agree.
great candidate for separating from the main power grid, for increasing the security of the facility and lowering the cost of running it. It shouldn't be stricken from the long-term goals of the committee or the council. We have a unique opportunity to get grant money for that. Remember all those windmills at Ocean City that Martin O'Malley so frivolously spent all that money for? We have those grants. I told the council and this committee it's a great new day in Annapolis. They still have all that grant money and they're willing to receive our grants requests. They didn't reduce the budget much in Annapolis. I don't know whether you noticed that or not. So the money doesn't, if it was spent on frivolous things, it's still in the budget. And if we appeal to our legislators and join with them in unity, we can do things to get funding to help us with our dilemma.
Well, if it's the general consent of the group, then I will go ahead and keep that in the report.
Well, it's not something we're going to finish by the time our charter is finished in this committee or the council.
Well, I mean, keeping it in.
It would require some
recommended
technical
action.
expertise that you can do. There are people in this county selling electricity back to the electric company and making a profit that have invested in renewable resources. It's called resiliency, and you want to do that with your infrastructure if you're a town or a city.
Well, thank you very much, John.
Sure, I love doing it.
Jackie, I turn the floor over to you.
Well, I pretty much had my say there a while ago.
Okay.
You know,
Lauren, any comments from the public?
I think that they would.
Well, I want to clarify wastewater and gray water. Because wastewater becomes gray water. That's something you need to remember. When it goes down to the treatment plant, that's exactly what it does, is it treats it. It goes through a press, it removes, we'll say, the fecal matter and other solids. Then it goes through a series of treatments that then turns it into gray water. Thing to remember is we are responsible for a certain amount of recharge into that creek
Yeah.
for other municipalities. In terms of what Jackie was saying, there will be cost because you need to split that pipe. Some still needs to go to the creek, some we can maintain. Then we need holding tanks to maintain it. There will be some costs involved. How much? I don't know. I don't care. The problem is it all does become gray water. It's not a bad idea. At the same time, we do have responsibility to
Yeah, I
recharge
think
other
that's something
municipalities.
that we've overlooked, not realizing that I'm not sure what the state would let us do.
Right. Because
But
there is
we
a
do
certain
have
amount
to
of
get-
gallons we
yeah.
have to put out into that creek.
Put back in, that's not just
Have
freebie.
Excellent points and all the more for the research.
Yeah.
And anything else, gentlemen? If there's any other business to come before the committee, then I'll go ahead and call the meeting adjourned. Our next meeting is on September 15th. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you both for coming as well.
Thank you, Councilman.
It's great. We're making a difference if we can get the batteries replaced, if we can get people looking into these things. So feel good about it. It's,
I do,
light is good.
Yay, yay.
It's great to see you. I still think the hairdo looks good. Carl, good to see you. Joe, long time no see. How much time do you think is